These are the guys that aren't hard to find because 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to be open.
Who's ranked, who's real, who's built to last, who got exposed, who's moving fast. From the HBCU pride to the Power 5 lights, we talk football every week, every night. Fans in the stands, drums on go, lights on bright, and the crowd moves slow. Big hits, ball picks, everybody knows. Daniel Roundtree got the football show.
Ahoy! I'm Daniel Roundtree. This is the Daniel Roundtree College Football Show. Hey, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate every time you decide to check out some new content that I'm putting out because you know today is a new day. That means it is a good day to talk some college football, and we got a great episode for you today. You know me, I don't want to waste your time. Today, we're going to be talking top 10 wide receivers in all of college football. These are the individuals that absolutely can take the top off. The guys that can make you miss, the guys that in the phone booth might make you break your ankles. These are the top 10 guys across the land. Before we do that, listen, I always want to show you appreciation because you decided to click on this video and take some time and watch it. So listen, I appreciate you and I want you to know my goals. I have a big goal of reaching 500 subscribers. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do me that favor. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit a like button if you like this video, maybe even turn on the alerts. You got nothing to lose. Go ahead and do that. Let's hit our goal. Okay, so as promised, today we are talking the top 10 pass catchers in all of college football. Now, I do have to do some honorable mention guys because this list, there's so many good wide receivers across the land of college football, right? There's guys in every single conference. And I mean, even the group of 5 guys, there's guys everywhere that can catch the ball and get into that end zone because wide receiver is one of those positions that everybody wants to play, right? Everybody wants to play running back and wide receiver when you're a little kid. And then you grow up and you realize you might not be fast enough. You might not be big enough. You might not have that clutch gene that you have to have when we talk wide receivers. But the guys on this list, let me tell you, they absolutely have it. So let's go right into the honorable mention. I wanted to do my best. Now, when we talk criteria, because you know me, I'm a big criteria guy. So when we talk criteria for the top wide receivers in all of college football, it's not just statistics, right? It's going to be a combination of statistics and their capability on maybe a new team, right? Or with a good quarterback. As a wide receiver, you're limited based on who's throwing you the ball, the offensive line. You can only really be so good as a wide receiver. It doesn't matter who you are. Could you imagine if Julio Jones played for a really small school, maybe like a Georgia State? He still probably would have got drafted, right? In fact, Georgia State just had a Julio Jones type of guy get drafted into the NFL, but he wouldn't have had as much of an impact in college nationwide where everyone knows his name. It's just the facts. So we're going to really dive into this list. Let's get into the honorable mention. Now, the honorable mention, I do want to say it's in no particular order. There could only be 10 guys in the whole college football. There's a lot of wide receivers, right? A lot of these teams have 3 wide receivers on the field at any given one time. So starting out at honorable mention, in no particular order, we have Ryan Wingo out of the University of Texas. Listen, Steve Sarkisian just related Ryan Wingo to Xavier Worthy. Whew, that is crazy. That is a fantastic comparison for anybody in college to have a coach saying, yeah, he reminds me of another guy we had that just happened to break the combine record, that just happened to be one of the fastest guys to ever play college football. That's a great comparison. So Ryan Wingo had 834 yards, 7 TDs. I think the big reason I don't have him in the top 10 is, although he was the number 1 on his team last year, I don't think he's going to be this year. He's probably going to be the number 2 read after Cam Coleman. That's what kind of put him at honorable mention. But who knows, sometimes in those types of situations, that's the guy that ends up shining. And when you look back at so many of these really good receivers, if you've been around watching ball for a while, a lot of people knew Sammy Watkins, and then DeAndre Hopkins emerged and ended up having a much better NFL career, right? And that's because of how great Sammy Watkins was his first few years, right? So I think Ryan Wingo could have that same type of effect. We had to put him in the honorable mention, even though Cam Coleman might be the first read. Ryan Wingo's a really, really good wide receiver, and that's a crazy comparison to Xavier Worthy. The guy can absolutely fly. Another honorable mention in no particular order, Nick Marsh from Indiana. Listen, Nick Marsh is probably about to explode with Curt Cignetti in this Indiana offense. I just think Nick Marsh has so many tools, right? But he's been trapped at Michigan State. I'm sorry, Michigan State. I love y'all, but listen, it's just the truth. Multiple different coaches. Now he's going to be at a steady situation in Indiana where they're going to be able to highlight his talents. And I think anytime you get a big wide receiver at Indiana, you got to look out for those guys because Curt Cignetti loves the back shoulder. He loves the deep ball. He loves those one-on-one situations. But we can't go into too much detail. This is just an honorable mention. I do want to mention, though, that Nick Marsh still has 662 yards at Michigan State last year with 6 touchdowns. Okay, another honorable mention, we got to mention Dakorien Moore out of the University of Oregon. This guy, true freshman last year, came onto the scene. If you don't know anything about Dakorien Moore, this is another guy absolutely can fly. It was very hard keeping him off of my top 10 list. I just think some of the other guys are just a little bit more veteran, a little bit more experienced, but Dakorien Moore is going to do special things at Oregon this year, especially if some of the other guys, those other pieces at Oregon explode the way I expect them to. It's going to be a lot of single coverage and it's going to be scary. Just look out for Dakorien Moore. He had a great season last year as a true freshman. This guy was the #1 overall recruit coming out of Texas going to the University of Oregon. So last year had 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. Pretty solid season for sure for any true freshman to get on the field. Okay, another honorable mention guy on the same exact team, University of Oregon, we're talking Evan Stewart. So listen, Evan Stewart is one of those guys that he could end up potentially having the most yards of any wide receiver in college football this year. That's how impactful he could be this season. This is another guy who can absolutely fly. Oregon's loaded. Oregon was on my top 5 wide receiver groups for good reason. Evan Stewart had a great, phenomenal season a couple years ago. What was it, 2024? I wouldn't say phenomenal. It was a good season. Sometimes I get a little carried away. But he had a good season a couple years ago for sure at Texas A&M. Last year, he was injured most of the season, so he kind of fell by the wayside. This is his reemergence year. He looked good in spring ball. I can't go into too much detail again because it's honorable mention. But a couple years ago, he had 613 yards, 5 TDs. If he can replicate that, Evan Stewart's definitely probably going to be an NFL draft pick. Might not be first round, but definitely first 3 rounds, especially if he can build off of that and have even better numbers this year. Okay, another honorable mention guy, again, I want to say in no particular order, we got to talk about Eric Singleton. Eric Singleton will be at the University of Florida this year. He started his career at Georgia Tech. Then he went over to Auburn. You know, these guys, they chase the bag, they move all over. But I think he should finally be in a situation now at Florida where I think he's going to have a good quarterback situation. And he's with an offensive coordinator that he's familiar with. Remember, Florida got Georgia Tech offensive coordinator, and that's the guy that helped Eric Singleton explode in the best season that he had in college football before he transferred over to Auburn. So this could be a match made in heaven. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but Eric Singleton at Georgia Tech was a do-it-all type of guy. He did the jet sweeps where he's getting the ball behind the line. He had the speed to catch the deep balls. He really, truly did it all. So I hope that they can reemerge that at the University of Florida. The University of Florida could be a dark horse, but that's for another video. Eric Singleton, last year, with not the best quarterback at Auburn, had 534 yards, 3 TDs. Okay, also at the University of Florida, sometimes you're thinking about one guy and you look at another guy and say, yeah, it's going to be hard for me to leave this guy off this list. Vernell Brown. I also want to mention Dallas Wilson, who is not on this one just because he had less yards than all these guys. He also probably played in less games. But Vernell Brown for sure is one of those guys, absolutely electric. I think he's going to explode this year in 2026. Look out for him at the University of Florida. Also, with the new offensive coordinator, I think they're going to use Eric Singleton and Vernell Brown to just absolutely scare defenses. Last year, as a true freshman, so Vernell Brown had 512 yards. He didn't have any touchdowns, but that's going to change this year in 2026 for sure. Okay, last couple guys that we got coming on the honorable mention list. I don't want to lose you. We're going to get to the top 10, but I got to mention these guys because remember, in college football, there's so many good wide receivers. So I have to mention Mike Matthews out of the University of Tennessee. Keep in mind, University of Tennessee had one of the best overall offenses in total yards per game in all of college football in 2025. They're probably going to do the same daggone thing in 2026. If they can figure out this quarterback situation right. They could have a true freshman starting at quarterback. We don't know. But Mike Matthews is a great target to have. He was also one of those guys that was a top recruit or top 3 wide receivers coming out of his class. Last year, really solid season. 834 yards, 4 TDs. So Mike Matthews was 170 yards, something like that, shy of being over that 1,000 century mark. He's going to do big things this year. He was still learning last year. Look out for him this year. Okay, here's another guy that I'm really excited to see in the Big 12. Wyatt Young at Oklahoma State. He was formerly at North Texas. He followed his coach from North Texas over to Oklahoma State. This guy had a really true phenomenal season last year in 2025. And yes, it was in a smaller conference in the AAC. That doesn't matter. Let's see what he does now in the Big 12. Last year, he had 1,264 yards, 10 TDs. So listen, at the end of the day, wide receiver is one of the hardest positions. If you're doing it almost at any level that's Division I, you're probably going to be able to replicate it when you step up a level. 9 times out of 10. He might not be over 1,000. I don't know. But I can almost guarantee you why it's going to be a guy that could creep right into this top 10 this year, because I think he's going to be Oklahoma State's top target in that offense. Okay, we got two more honorable mentions. I had to mention Amare Miller. Amare was over at University of Colorado. Now he's going to be with Kenny Dillingham over at Arizona State. Listen, this is one of the guys who was one of the brightest spots for University of Colorado, even though they didn't have a solid season last year. He's a guy that can kind of do it all, and he's built like a tall running back. If you look at Amare Miller, he really is one of those guys that I think has an NFL type body type. Right now in college football, he's got to develop just those small things. And I think more importantly, if Arizona State can just get him the ball more, get him out in space, let him do what he does, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be extremely fun to watch and could put Arizona State in contention, because keep in mind that Big 12 is always wide open. But last year, Amare Miller had 808 yards and 8 TDs at Colorado. So those are really good numbers. I think he's going to build on that this year. He'll probably be Arizona State's #1 target, so look out for him this year. The final honorable mention guy is Brian Wesco from Clemson. Dabo's got his guy back. Brian Wesco had some injury issues last year. Listen, Brian Wesco last year, he only had 537 yards and 6 TDs, but this guy is a big play guy. He's definitely one of those guys who's going to be scary and hard to guard in the red zone. I believe Brian Wesco is 6'3", 6'4", big body type of receiver, NFL prototype type of receiver. And remember, Clemson got a new offensive coordinator. So I think with Chad Morris is the guy who coached up Sammy Watkins, who I mentioned earlier, who coached up DeAndre Hopkins. And I think he's going to put Brian Wesco into positions where he's going to have more one-on-one coverage. Look out for him this year. I think he's going to have a much better year in 2026. Okay, y'all ready for the top 10? So what I'm going to do in the top 10, I'm going to list them all out. I want you to see my true top 10. And then I'm going to tell you why I have each guy ranked where they're ranked, okay? So at number 10, we have Cooper Barkay from University of Miami. No surprise, you see his stats, over 1,000 yards. Cooper has 7 TDs. He was the top target for Darian Mensah at Duke last season. I don't know if he's going to be the top target at University of Miami with another guy who's absolutely on this list, but it was almost impossible to keep him off of this list. Anytime a receiver is going over 1,000 yards, that's a guy you have to keep an eye on, because defensive coordinators are absolutely keeping their eyes on him because they're worried about how they're going to stop him. Okay. We have Mario Craver from Texas A&M. Last year, he had 917 yards, 4 TDs. Charlie Becker from Indiana. Listen, Charlie Becker's story is phenomenal. This guy was not even a starter to start the season. Now, in fact, he was really only on special teams. And then later on in the season, by game 6, 7, he's the starting guy because Elijah Surratt got hurt and Charlie Becker never looked back. They had to keep him on the field, even with the great receiving core that University of Indiana had. Remember, Omar Thornton and Elijah, they both got drafted, and Charlie Becker is the only one coming back. That guy's story is great. He had a great season not being the starter. So in Charlie's small sample size, he still has 617 yards and 4 TDs. I think Charlie's a guy in this Indiana offense who may get over or close to 1,000 yards this year, especially with Nick Marsh, who's probably going to take the number 1 corner. Charlie Becker's about to feast on that number 2 corner. You saw it all throughout the playoffs. You definitely saw it in the national championship. I mean, Miami could not do much at all with Charlie Becker. Okay, and then we have Isaiah Satigna from OU. This is a guy who has true track speed. If you don't know anything about Isaiah, listen, both of his parents were runners. I believe his mom was an Olympic runner. His dad played ball as well as was also a sprinter. This is true bloodline track speed on the football field. And unlike some track guys, this guy translates. He's not just a guy who can run in a straight line. He can do it all. You saw it all throughout last year for University of Oklahoma. He had 965 yards and 8 touchdowns. And some of those touchdowns came in the absolute clutch to win games. At number 6, we have KJ Duff from Rutgers. Listen, this is one of the most underrated guys on this list because a lot of people just aren't watching Rutgers football, but you should be, because listen, when we talk KJ Duff, this is a guy who I think is going to be a 1st or 2nd round draft pick. He reminds me a lot of a guy who came through SMU, Cortland Sutton, same type of body type. KJ Duff is 6'3". He catches the contested catches. Big body guy who can truly run. Listen, KJ Duff's going to be a problem for the entire Big Ten. I do think this is his last season this year. Look out for him. He's going to do special things. We'll talk more about him in a second. But last year, KJ Duff had 1,084 yards, 7 touchdowns. At number 5, we have Ryan Coleman-Williams. So Ryan Williams, formerly, he changed his name. So listen, his first year as a true freshman, everybody was talking about Ryan Williams. This guy single-handedly, it felt like, beat the University of Georgia. He had one of the most special true freshman seasons that I can remember in a long time within the SEC conference. Last year, not so much. The sophomore slump is a true thing, especially for the wide receiver position. I want to really see him bounce back now in year 3. He changed his number. He has a name change with Ryan Coleman-Williams. Although a lot of those troubles were purely on him, right? Because if you know anything about how he played last year, he led the entire country in drops. The whole daggone country, right? So that's never a good look. But the reason why he's still number 5 on my top 10 wide receivers list, the potential is absolutely there. This guy is special. He's one of the fastest guys on this entire list. I think he just needs to work on his craft. I think sometimes, especially when you're that young, it's hard to balance, right? Getting all the fame and everybody knowing your face and you're still 18, 19 years old. I think he got his reality check last year. This is going to be the year you're going to see Ryan Williams again, and probably the best version now that he's Ryan Coleman-Williams. So regardless of everything that I mentioned in relation to the drops, Ryan Coleman-Williams last year still has 689 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think this year you're going to definitely see those numbers go up. At number 4, we have Deuce Robinson from Florida State University. Listen, Deuce Robinson was fun to watch last year. Deuce Robinson is a true big body receiver. I don't know where Florida State keeps finding these giant guys that are 6'6" and up. They had the other guy a couple years that I think went to the Eagles that was 6'7". Where are they finding these big guys? I know Deuce Robinson was somewhere else prior. I think he was at USC before coming to Florida State. He's their best wide receiver. I think this year he's going to see an increase in his production, especially because I think Florida State may have a better run game this year. That's absolutely going to help Deuce Robinson get more one-on-one coverage and get the ball and be able to use that big body. 6'6" wide receivers. There's not that many guys that's even that tall in the world. So he can run, he can do it all. Last year he had 1,081 yards, 6 touchdowns. Look out for Deuce. We're going to talk about why I have him in the top 4. At number 3, we got Cam Coleman from the University of Texas. Listen, I mentioned him earlier. I think the key thing to note with Cam Coleman is just like Jeremiah Smith. I don't understand why they aren't mentioned in the same breath. They were when they were coming out of high school at the same time. They were in the same recruiting class, right? Jeremiah Smith was seen as the number 1 wide receiver. Cam Coleman was seen as the number 2 wide receiver. And I think that is probably going to end up happening in this year's draft in exactly that order. Cam Coleman has all the tools. I think last year was tough to watch at times with the quarterback situation with Jackson Arnold. And then, of course, they had a quarterback change later on in the season. That's tough when you have quarterbacks being juggled. You can't create chemistry. And I think also I watched a few of Auburn's games and they were too focused on deep balls. That was too much of their offense. Run, quick RPO, deep ball. Both wide receivers, literally 4 verts. I think you got to mix it up. I really want to see Cam Coleman run a full route tree and definitely get into being able to be a true wide receiver who can do everything. Despite all the things I just mentioned last year, no shade to Auburn, but despite those things, Cam Coleman has 708 yards and 5 touchdowns last season. So still a really solid season. Only 300 yards, shy of 1,000. Okay, top 2. Y'all ready for the top 2? I mean, you can see it already, but top 2, we have Malachi Toney from Miami. Listen, Malachi Toney, I think, may have had the best freshman season that I've seen of any wide receiver in any conference. So with Ryan Williams, I said probably the best wide receiver I've seen as a true freshman in the SEC in a long time. I think outside of him, maybe Kadarius Toney or there's a lot of guys, but there's not been a lot as true freshmen come in and actually play and do what Ryan Coleman-Williams did. Malachi Toney, I'm talking the whole NCAA as a true wide receiver. Not only did he help lead his team to the national championship, but this guy was the focal point of the Miami offense from game 1. And his production did not go down. 1,211 yards, 11 touchdowns from Malachi Toney as a true freshman. I think for him, how he avoids a sophomore slump is definitely making sure as a wide receiver, he's taking care of his body. You don't want to be playing with injuries. You don't want to be dealing with a situation where you're already hobbled, especially now that Miami has a lot of other good receivers around them. There's only one ball. So I think last year, C.J. Daniels, Keelan Marion, 2 good wide receivers, but they were not as explosive as some of the guys they have on their team now, along with Malachi Toney. For Malachi Toney, he's top 2 because of what he means to his team. He's not just a wide receiver. This guy throws the ball. He runs the ball. He does punt return and kick return. He's one of those guys that's a true gadget. And there is an argument for him to be number 1. But on my list, he's number 2 because we're talking pure wide receivers, Malachi Toney. At number 1, no surprise, we have Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State. Listen, Jeremiah Smith has been the best wide receiver since he got to college football, in college football. Let's just be honest. Even as a true freshman when they won the national championship, Jeremiah Smith was the focal point of Ohio State. So last year, 1,243 yards, 13 TDs. Let me tell you, this is why this is so significant. So he did this last year as a sophomore. No sophomore slump for Jeremiah Smith. And I think a key thing to note is after the freshman season he had, he wasn't sneaking up on nobody. It wasn't no defensive coordinator that was out there that didn't know the name Jeremiah Smith. That means he was seeing double coverage in a lot of these games. He definitely was being schemed around where they were trying to take him out of the game. And there were certain games you definitely saw the other guys shine. Carnell Tate went number 4 for a reason. But despite all of that, this guy's still well over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, almost unstoppable if he's one-on-one in the red zone. Go watch some Ohio State's games. Those jump balls in the red zone are Jeremiah Smith's ball 9 times out of 10. So absolutely number 1 on this list. Let's really talk about it just real quick. Who should be moved up or down? I think there's a big argument for KJ Duff from Rutgers to be maybe higher than number 6. I think the team he plays for, it hurts him just a little bit. If he played for Ohio State or if he played for Miami or any team on this list that was contending, it might be a little bit harder to deny him. But because a lot of the masses have not seen KJ Duff, I think he's fine where he's at number 6. In regards to Deuce Robinson, he's a guy that I think has a really solid argument to be higher than Cam Coleman. Yeah. And I think the thing with that is, okay, he had more yards, more touchdowns. You could argue that last year, Deuce Robinson at Florida State had some quarterback struggles as well. Listen, the quarterback at Florida State last year, Tommy Castellanos, good quarterback, but he was a runner. Let's just be honest. He can throw the ball. You saw him do it against Alabama in the first game. But this guy wanted to run the ball, true athlete. He actually switched to wide receiver. I'm not sure if he got a shot at the NFL or if he's going UFL or one of the other leagues. But Deuce Robinson and Cam Coleman kind of had the same situation. The only reason I have Deuce Robinson at 4 instead of at 3 over Cam Coleman is potential. I just think Cam Coleman has so much potential, and I do think he's a faster guy than Deuce Robinson. So for that reason, just because you have a 6'6" body, at the end of the day, you still got to get open. You still got to run all the routes. And I don't see Deuce Robinson as a guy who's going to take a screen pass and boom, go to the house. Randy Moss was one of those taller guys, 6'4", 6'5". He could do that. He could take a screen pass and also would moss you. Yeah. He would do all of that. But there's an argument there. I think Malachi Toney definitely has an argument for number 1 over Jeremiah Smith. Listen, before you call me crazy, before you say that's ludicrous, I think that argument would only stand if we're talking about what they mean to their teams and what all can they do. Jeremiah Smith is a true wide receiver. He is a true outside wide receiver. In my opinion, outside wide receiver is harder than slot. It just is. But in regards to Malachi Toney, he definitely does more. Jeremiah Smith, from pure wide receiver standpoint, untouchable. He's definitely number 1. I think one of the guys on this list that's most underrated in the top 10 is Mario Craver. This is another guy that can absolutely fly. And I think what is most underrated about Mario Craver is his yards after catch and his capability to make guys miss and break tackles. Did you see Mario Craver in the Notre Dame game? Did you see what he did in that game? Mario Craver is going to be one of those guys this year, now that they have a true big body wide receiver in Isaiah Horton. I think he's going to have a big time season for Texas A&M. He alone could be one of those reasons that Texas A&M gets back to the playoffs because of his speed. Keep in mind, while everybody else at Texas A&M was getting bottled up, even KC Concepcion kind of got bottled up against Miami in the playoffs on that windy day, Mario Craver still had big plays even in that type of game. So look out for Mario Craver at number 9. He's a guy that can definitely move up on this list. I think when we talk potential and a guy who can absolutely go from the bottom half of the top 10 to the top half is definitely Isaiah Sategna. Isaiah Sategna, with that type of speed, is one of those guys that I don't know if anyone on this list, maybe Ryan Coleman-Williams can get him in a race. But if it's on the track, Isaiah's going to win. And those types of receivers are absolutely the guys who usually get the eyes and the ears of all the scouts. He has a really good chance of going first round. He just has to do enough this year. If he does enough this year and doesn't take a step back, he's almost guaranteed to be a first-round draft pick, maybe second or third receiver off the board. So he's one of those guys that could end up maybe number 4, number 5 this year if he has a really good year. The last guy I want to really talk about on this list, and I mentioned him a little bit earlier, is Charlie Becker. And when we talk Charlie again, the Indiana offense, it's just hard to stop what they do. It doesn't matter how athletic you are, but it helps. It helps if you're a true athlete. I think Charlie Becker can really do it all. He runs all the routes. Go watch Charlie Becker in that game against Ohio State. He was a big reason why Indiana was able to kind of get over that hump. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then Indiana started to pull away because of Charlie Becker's play. He was the receiver that Ohio State kind of underestimated, and he started taking the top off on those guys. Big play after big play. So I think Charlie Becker is definitely one of those guys who's going to end up in the top 5, maybe at 5. I need Ryan Coleman-Williams to show me something this year. I don't know. I hope he can. He got 2 younger wide receivers at Alabama. But if he can't, Charlie Becker is going to go from 8 to 5 real quick because he's going to get that ball to Indiana. He's going to do big things. So this is my top 10 wide receivers list. In regards to the argument, you let me know. Who did I leave off of this list? Who should I have said more about on this list? Did I get it right, at least with the top 5? Let me know in the comments what you think of my top 10, but I can't wait to watch these guys score touchdowns and do their dance in the end zone this season. Every single wide receiver on this list probably has NFL potential, so look out for these guys, top 10 wide receivers going into the 2026 season. Thank you again for tuning in. Don't forget to like the video on your way out. And again, I'm Daniel Roundtree. This is the Daniel Roundtree College Football Show.